let us give them the experience as an experience, not as a clinical thing. It's like, and yes, we have clinical support. We have, clinicians on our team. We have, we say we're a clinically informed outdoor education program, right? And we take it very seriously. We work with some pretty complicated clients. The client I'm going to Maine with is on the spectrum and is, has been in and out of, some significant hospitalizations.
Yeah.
And they keep coming back to me saying, I want more. All right, well, let's go.
Good afternoon. My name is Graham Doerge, and I'm the founder and CEO of New Waters Recovery in Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome to our weekly podcast, Finding New Waters. Our goal in creating Finding New Waters is to provide a resource for families to help navigate the complexities of supporting a loved one struggling with substance use or mental health. When we find ourselves in crisis due to one of these issues, most people have no idea where to turn. We hope to shed some light into what is often the darkest hour for many families. I'm joined here today by our Executive Director, Justin McClendon, and Tim Walsh, who is the founder of Adventure Recovery. Tim is an outdoor educator and recovery coach trainer who specializes in guiding people through the external and internal wilderness. Over the last 25 years, he has founded and led numerous programs and institutions in youth development and the addictions recovery and prevention fields. He offers individualized support for those seeking purpose and spiritual development. Tim advises and develops experiential education, adventure therapy, and substance misuse awareness programs for private schools, youth development programs, treatment centers, and national conferences. He's a pioneer in the field of adventure-based counseling and was one of the founding team members of the Mountainside Treatment Center and served as executive director for Newport Academy. Tim has earned instructor trainer levels of certification in ACA whitewater canoe, pro rescuer first aid and CPR, and lifeguarding, as well as certifications in advanced swiftwater rescue and whitewater kayak instruction, wilderness first responder, recovery coaching, and adventure-based counseling. He studies various wisdom traditions, healing rites, and practical tools from elders and practitioners from both Western and Eastern disciplines. With reverence and respect for ceremony and ritual, Tim crafts a tailored approach to the personal transformative process, creating healing experiences for individuals of all ages. Tim, welcome, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Graham. Thanks, Justin, for inviting me. It's really exciting to be part of this podcast and what you guys are doing.
Absolutely, man. Well, I wanted to start out today. Obviously, Tim and I actually go back a little ways, and I'll just kind of qualify here for a little bit. And I've had some firsthand experience with his work. I had a family member back in the day, a couple of years ago, where, we were connected with Tim through some people, and he was able to step in and do some work with his family member, and really just had a profound experience. And for me in particular, this is I'm super passionate about this topic in general, right? And I think that, in my story, in my kind of recovery, being out in wilderness, being in nature has been probably like the most important thing that I do on a daily basis, whether it's exercise, movement. When I was living in Florida, it was fly fishing on a daily basis. So I really, I love the power of that, and I love what you're doing. And maybe just tell us a little bit about Adventure Recovery and the work that you do, and we can kind of go from there.
Absolutely. First of all, apologies for the mouthful of the bio.
No worries.
I always feel like that's kind of a little bit too much information.
But it's all great information to know.
Yeah, it's all good information.
It is great information to know. Yeah, I'm proud of the work I've been allowed to do, and certainly the people I've been gifted the opportunity to work with and to help along their journey. So it means a lot. And you just mentioning my relationship with your family and as a dad, as a husband, as a brother, as an uncle, as a son, keep checking all those family titles. Anytime a family reaches out or a professional reaches out to refer a family to me in AR, it's overwhelming, quite frankly. And I'm sure you guys relate to that tremendously. In fact, I know you do. That it's such a gift to be part of the journey at any point. And so for that, I thank you, and knowing that it is an ongoing process, right, for everybody, and you never know when people are going to reach out and need a little bit more support, ourselves included, right?
Yeah.
So, so adventure recovery, and all the accolades there, whatever the credentials I've earned, I leave one out of that bio, which is the one that's most important to me, which is my most important credential, is that I'm a professional adolescent. So I've never grown up. And a lot of my friends consider me the ultimate version of Peter Pan. I may look old and grizzled. That's just the mileage, showing. It's, I truly have embraced my own recovery journey from day one, as a gift, and I'm not going to waste any time. I'm not going to waste any of it sitting around, and I'm just going to go after it. So for me, this process, really began as a kid. I was the kid who you just couldn't sit still. This is, I'm 53 years old, so growing up in a, suburban community, right on the edge of a urban community, being in that very interesting, blue collar lifestyle, surrounded by all the different inequities, if you will. People super, super wealthy on one side of town, people super, super, poor on the other side of town, and, kind of being right smack in the middle. And for me, every little pocket of woods in the neighborhood, or the surrounding neighborhoods, was vital. I grew up on the coast of Connecticut, down in Fairfield County, and getting to jump into Long Island Sound, and take off onto the Norwalk Islands and camp out. These were just easy escapes, that I got to have as a kid. And then I went through some traumatic experiences with some loss. I had a very dear family member pass away from suicide, and it impacted me very, very powerfully. And it was literally like a switch went off in me, where I went from being a pretty straightforward, good kid kind of thing, doing what I was told, to all bets are off. I was raised in an Irish Catholic household. We went to church every Sunday. It coincided at the same time of having, gone through my confirmation, and my dad saying, "It's your choice now." And it's like, all right, peace. No more church for me. Right. And then my cousin dying by suicide was, the true nail in the coffin of, I'm done with this religious thing, and, this is all, baloney. And it was very soon after that I was, given the opportunity to start using substances. And the first, and up to that point where my cousin passed away, I had an adamant perspective of what substance use disorder looks like, alcoholism, drug addiction. My family's riddled with it. And, I'm one of 4 siblings. I'm the only one, thankfully, who's, lucky enough to carry the flag. But they, the surrounding family members on both sides were just, a lot of struggle, a lot of stress involved. And when my cousin died, it was just like, well, whatever. All the rules don't apply anymore. This isn't cool. I'm not with it. So the next opportunity to use substances, it was alcohol, marijuana, and boom, off to the races. And for me, it was a very profound impact, the way substances affected me. I was overwhelmed with a sense of peace and ease, and soon with a sense of overwhelming sense that I'm going to puke my guts up. But didn't remember that. Right, that part just, that beautiful compartmentalization. Yes. The compartmentalization, the euphoric recall of, I don't remember getting sick.
Right.
So from 11 years old to 22 years old, that was it. That was my entire purview nothing else mattered. And I just like right off the edge and full bore head in, I'm going. And like so many stories we hear of the impacts of untreated mental illness and untreated substance use disorder, I was a train wreck, and I just affected everything and everyone around me negatively. There was very little positive reinforcement going on. Not for lack of people trying. My family did what they could with what they knew. The school system did what they could with what they knew. The legal system did what they could with what they knew. And ultimately, at 22 years old, I landed on the doorstep of Watch Farm, which we were talking about before we kicked off.
Yep.
And I couldn't imagine being in any better place at 22, because that place was simple. Make your bed, do your chore, go to 3 12-step meetings a day, stay away from the opposite sex, and don't drink or use drugs.
Right. And there's a lot of history at High Watch as well, with
that's right,
the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous and all that. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I used to joke and say I went straight to the Colombians for my cocaine, so why not go straight to High Watch for my recovery, right? The High Watch Farm is credited with, and factually and historically accurate, with the first place that was using the 12 steps as a form of treatment. Wow. And it was done so by people using the 12 steps as a form of their own personal recovery. So it was a true retreat model, first of its kind in that sense, where Alcoholics Anonymous and the founders, basically Bill Wilson and Marty Mann, who's considered to be the first woman in AA, were presented the farm. It was called Hope Farm, and the ministry of the High Watch as a gift. And at that point, actually, they knew AA shouldn't own property. Mm-hmm. So they said, no, we're not going to do that, but you're welcome to use this model. Mm-hmm. And it's been active since. And that to me, and what we were sharing earlier, so that catch the viewers or the listeners up, is yesterday I got to present on a topic of nature as healer, and the science behind how nature heals, and how being outdoors and how outdoor activities and outdoor skills development is a healing path for mental illness and substance use disorders. And to do that in a room full of clinicians, right? And we're getting credit for being there, and I'm standing up there literally in my bare feet, because that's how I present. And just being overwhelmed. This is where it started. I got to walk out the door every day and go down to the Kent Falls and exhaust myself physically. I'd run down through the woods, down to the falls, back to the top, and I'd sit at the top of the falls. Yep. And I'd listen, and I'd watch, and I'd look around, and I got to see a full year cycle of change. Yeah. I wasn't seeing it in me, not nearly as clearly as I saw it around me. So it really affected me that way, to be witness to the fact that, oh, right, nature doesn't really, it's not waiting for you, dude. The world is moving forward, and what are you going to do? Yeah. And I got to stay there for 364 days, because at the third week, which was gifted, by the way, my third week was gifted to me by an anonymous person who paid for my extension of 3 weeks. And in that third week, one of the cooks got drunk, and the guy around the kitchen said, "Hey, you're a cook. Here's an apron." Wow. And they put me on the payroll as a cook. Wow. And for 364 days, I got to be in protective custody. Living, and that was the coolest thing about it back then, is you lived with the client, with the residents, and the only difference was, if I wasn't in a meeting, I was in the kitchen, right, or run around the woods.
Some pretty good accountability there.
So yeah, it was so simple, right? It was so, and I needed that. I know there's a lot of advancements that have happened in the field of mental health, and what you guys are doing particularly just blows my mind, and I love it. For me, at that moment in my life, man, it just like, in fact, when they handed me the big book of AA, the Alcoholics Anonymous, they're like, read this. And I cracked it open. I was just, and what? Yeah. And luckily for me, it was a third edition. And one of the guys just flipped towards the back. And there was a story in there called Join the Tribe. And it's a story of a Micmac Indian or Native American who it's written in broken English, I'm son of a big chief, and it's this really simple, I think it's literally 3 pages, and I haven't read it in a long time. It's no longer in the new 4th edition, but and it turns out this guy is like a local legend too, right? In the recovery space, in the 12-step rooms. And I've actually been sponsored by guys who sponsored him, or he sponsored, right?
That's cool.
So yeah, but it was like, oh, I could read this, it's simple. It's 3 pages, and it was a story of, recovery.
Right.
And it just so happened to be, even as a kid, like I had always been attracted to what I didn't know then, but now is, indigenous wisdom, indigenous healing practices, and indigenous spirituality. So it just like all that for that first year was just magic. And the other piece that's really important, why this is all leading up to why adventure recovery. Yeah. My first sponsor in AA was an outdoor guy. He actually was a ranch hand in Montana for decades, sober. And then he came back east to be to go back to carpentry. And he was actually working at, High Watch doing a remodeling job. And, he'd sit in the kitchen every morning and have coffee with me and talk about recovery. And then he was like, hey, you're 22. There's no way you're going to make it if, you're stuck in church basements for the rest of your life. Right. So let's go do some fun shit. Yep. And he's a guy who said, let's go mountain biking. All right, cool. Let's go rock climbing. All right, cool. Let's go whitewater kayaking. All right, cool. Yep. And let's go skydiving. Yep, hell yeah. And it just, that was our relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, what a gift to get connected with somebody like that at that point. I mean, it's I've shared with you personally how my story. I had that awareness while I was in treatment. I had this this gift that was I feel like was given to me by God or some sort of spiritual entity. And, I just had the awareness that like life is not over because I can't get high anymore. And look at all the amazing shit that I can do now. And, that was it for me. It was like picking up a fly rod, going, now I, mountain bike a ton and just every morning try to get out into the woods first thing. We've got some great, kind of trails around our house. I can go do some trail running right out the door. And I mean, that's just magic. Starting your day like that there's just no better way, So, but not everybody has that connection while they're in treatment, and especially young adults, which I think primarily, you're working with a lot of young adults and it's hard to crack through that shell sometimes.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think there could be a lot of, just lack of insight or not just, especially young guys and girls just, not even knowing what they want, right? I mean, not even having any idea who they are, who they want to be, what they like, what their interests are. So it can be really difficult, I think. And, I think if a young person in recovery has the opportunity to have some of those experiences in an early recovery, I mean, that can be huge because it can hopefully open them up to some ideas that they haven't even, pondered for themselves. Tim, I'm just wondering, I don't want to maybe jump too far ahead of your story, or maybe you're getting to this, but you're talking about, that year and your opportunities to be able to have these experiences. You mentioned, sitting at the top of that waterfall and just noticing things change. And I guess my question for you is, I'm sure it was a collection of a lot of things, but what do you feel like, what was it the essence of made that shift for you or helped you make that shift for yourself?
Oh, man. I think ultimately the greatest gift of that overall experience was trust God, clean house, help others, for lack of a better term. It was literally embedded in my daily practice, right? My daily routine. I talk about that deep-seated resentment that I had against this concept of a higher power. Specifically with what happened with my cousin, and that actually healed in like a very a beautiful moment. I was locking up the place at night one night, just literally walking through and turning off all the lights in the whole facility, and walking from building to building. And I decided it was a brilliant night. Stars were full force, and I sat in a lawn chair and I was just looking up, and I had this just out of nowhere thought, I realized my cousin, died of suicide because he was suffering, and he didn't know there was any other way out. And that was his moment, right? And I just had this overwhelming sense of like that resentment that I carried against him, against God, against the world. It just like left me.
Wow.
And this is the kind of shit I tell people all the time. You can't believe any of this when it comes out of my mouth until it happens to you. And the only way it's going to happen to you is if you go outside. But what happened literally in that moment, as I had that, exhale of, it's like falling off of me. A shooting star lit up the sky across the entire, just awesome. Right, just horizon line to horizon line. And I was like, all right. And at that point, I had a few of those experiences happen where, I just this kind of do what you're told mentality, like, do this, kid, do this, kid, do this. And that's what I got up there. It's just this, try this, try this, try this. And then in my free time, knowing like I can't sit still. I'm not going to go read in the corner. I'm going. So I just that exhausting my body to sit and let my brain absorb. So that what I'm getting at is the trust God component came really quickly for me, because I had these monumental shifts occur around perception of what that is, right? And then the clean house part also became very clear, because my family started to, creep back in and trust me. And because I was, beginning to earn that trust back, right? Getting keys to churches to be a coffee maker, like at a meeting, there were these really cool moments where I began to realize, it's because I'm cleaning up here. I'm not making a mess anymore, and I'm starting to own the mess that I made in the past. And then the helping others, that was daily routine. My job every morning was to make breakfast, and it was short order cook style. You come to the window and, hey man, good morning. What can I get you for breakfast?
Right.
And what a gift, to be able to just look people in the eye who are literally shaking. I would have to bring people their place. I had to feed one guy one time. Wow. I had to feed him. His peas were going all over the place. And it just like, so those three, attributes, testaments of recovery were just embedded in my daily life. And they weren't forced, right? None of it was forced. It was just like, here's your opportunity, man. Silver platter, go for it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, we actually I was just talking with a client about this morning as well. And it, like, what kind of I got from what you just shared was like the simplicity of what you were doing, right? And really just slowing down, and just focusing on these simple tasks at hand, getting into that routine. But also the humility of, being a short order cook and doing something you'd never done before, and servicing people and being there to do that is just so powerful. And that's the magic of the program in AA at the end of the day, right? Is being of service and giving back to others, and it's a lot of times hard for people to like get to that place, thinking there's so much to do before you kind of get there. But it's so powerful and such an important part of this early process,
Yeah, what's wild too is I actually left there almost a pastry chef. It was like I know how to run a grill, I know how to run a line. I know, I grew up in restaurants basically, and so I was like, what's the one thing I never did? Is I never did desserts. So that was like my thing. I just like jumped into making desserts, because I do breakfast and I kind of take a break till lunch, serve lunch, and then take a break and then come back to cook dinner.
Yeah.
But it's I want to get back to also the fact that I had the sponsor who's like, let's go do fun shit.
Yeah.
In fact, that's our pitch to all our clients. Anybody who reaches out to AR, especially the younger adults, right? or the adolescents even, they're often like, who's this? I'm 6'2", 220 pounds.
Yeah.
When you see me coming, it can be intimidating, right?
Right.
You're a teenager and you've heard all the stories about gooning and, people getting
yeah.
snatched out of their beds. So I just, I walk up and say, hey man, I'm going to go do some fun shit. You want to come with?
Mm.
It's an invitation. It's not an obligation.
Yep.
That's cool.
And and that's everybody on the team is literally trained that way. That's our invitation, everybody. Like, we're going no matter what. And if there's a cancellation last minute, or a client changes their mind, or client drives the bus, if they don't want to do what we said we're going to do, that's okay. We'll do something else.
Yeah.
And that flexibility is really, really important in that early recovery. But once the decision's made, let's go, right? Let's stick to the commitment until nature dictates otherwise.
Yep.
And that's really amazing, because nature, right, is neutral.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, nature cares very, very deeply about us being successful. That is the objective of nature, to succeed in life. That's the objective of nature. And at the same time, it doesn't give a shit about you. It doesn't care how you feel, what you think, how tired you are, how cold you are, or wet you are.
Yep.
Just go, right?
Yep.
Either go or stop. It's pretty clear in those moments, right? So the getting back to that sponsor and him saying, like, let's go. Let's not sit around. Let's not wait for someone to hand you any of this stuff. Let's not get trapped in the mindset, right? Let's get into action, and let's build a life, right? There's no reason to go back if you know how to go forward.
Yeah.
And if you have something to go forward for. So for me, the first thing was snowboarding. Like, that was the first thing. I just was like, this is it. I love this. I'm going to do this. In fact, I was going for pro, actually.
Oh, cool.
As a border crosser. And I got hurt, of course, because that's, the other part. I have no off switch. So, but the experience it brought me into outdoor leadership. That's how I got Bridge the Gap. So when I left Highwatch, I went into a snowboard shop. I was actually a ski shop that was just first year ever, first ski shop in town selling snowboards. Cool. And I went home and got to stay at home for a couple months before I moved into a house with a bunch of sober guys, right? Yeah. And that was my first job outside of Highwatch, where I got to, sell snowboards. We built a snowboard shop in this really cool sports shop, and then all these others, they sold everything: kayaks, climbing gear, camping gear. And so anytime there wasn't anybody interested in snowboard, I'd be wandering around the store bugging all the guys at the their counters, like, let me see this. What's this thing? Picking up a cam, try a cam, like, ooh, this is cool. What do you do with this? You stick it in the crack in the rock. Why do you do that? Because when you fall, it holds you.
And that's a good job for a gearhead like you, I would assume, too, right?
Right. You got it. Yeah, that we warn all the guides, our specialization is training people in recovery to become outdoor leaders, right? Yeah. That's the foundation of our model, is because most of the big name outdoor leadership schools won't accept someone in early recovery for good reason.
Yeah.
They're not set up for it, right? And I would also, and still do, caution people who are in recovery, no matter how long they're in recovery. If you're going to go apply for a NOLS or Outward Bound instructor or semester program, be honest in your application, because there's a reason they don't specialize in our population, because we're different fundamentally when it comes to socialization, and it comes to social anxieties. And what's great about recovery communities is you realize very quickly, I'm safe. Safe space, right? I'm welcome here. Everyone here speaking my language understands me. You get into these outdoor leadership schools, and these people are charging their whole lives. They haven't hiccuped at all, right? In a lot of cases, not all the cases, but in a lot of cases. And then all of a sudden, you're like, oh well, what the hell? Do I belong here? And skills wise, you could be just going right up top to the top of the class, but you're not getting that daily check-in, right? You're not getting that community. You're missing out on that piece.
Yeah.
And then if you're a young person and you're already working with the identity crisis and the identity issues associated with early recovery and where you fit and what you've lost and what you're, where are you, it takes its toll. So ultimately, having watched people coming in and out of those schools and struggle when they leave with that whole experience, not all will, I've seen people just thrive and keep going, but it's what really got me, charged up to do something different. Yeah. And I get people from those communities saying like, wait a minute, you're training people like straight out of treatment. Like I was like, I train people who are in treatment. I don't give a shit. If they're interested, I'm going to take them. And it's like, just like a client, the only rule I have around substance use is you can't go out high because it's a risk management issue.
Right.
You can't be under the influence. So
you're meeting really where they're at, right?
And for us, it's not a saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just a saying. It's not a tagline for the website, right? It's for real.
Yeah.
And what's most important for me is that I say it's Jedi training. We're just taking you from the dark side to the light side. You've got all these skills, man. There's no point in not using them. You worked really hard to work over, yourself, right? Let alone everybody else around you. Let's put that to good use. So what happens, it's a miracle, I believe, truly. It's like this miracle of awareness that some of the best risk managers I've ever worked with are people with the most horrific stories.
Yep.
Because they see so many angles.
Yeah.
That like a quote unquote normal person who hasn't had a lot of stress in their life, right?
Hypervigilant. Yep.
Exactly. The hypervigilance comes in, man, and it's wild. Yeah.
It's interesting because we've got a staff member here too that you mentioned that, and we're a detox, so obviously you've got people that are always trying to sneak things in, substances and whatnot, and it's not that often, but whenever it happens, we have this one staff member that he's got a long history, we'll say, right? But he always knows like the minute something's up.
Yeah.
Right. His hypervigilance is just incredible.
Yes.
He's like, something's off, and like 99% of the time he's correct. Right. It's so fun.
Yes. Yeah.
So
usually long before anybody else is
100%. Yeah. So that's
what's funny is
having those people who've had that experience, right?
Yeah.
Right. Lived experience is, to me, it's not the most important thing, right? It's not the most important thing, but man, it's pretty important, right? For a person who's brand new to earn trust, to gain trust, right? To gather trust, to truly be affected profoundly. And we know this, right? We have very small windows of opportunity to capture someone's attention who is struggling with a mental health or substance use crisis. So it's got to be compelling, right? Yeah. That window of action's got to be compelling. And that's, again, for me, like, very selfishly, I need to do this. Right. This is my medicine. This is my healing path. I have to do this. It's not like I've tried the other way. I've tried the, administrative role and, C-suite stuff. And like, no, I joke all the time. I'm the CEO and founder of AR, which I have no idea what CEO stands for in this case.
Right.
Right. Chief experiential officer, maybe, I don't know, but I'm like, I am outside every day for my own mental health. And then the other thing that we, cover a lot is the skill is what's really important, and don't want to, and most people are like nature and beauty and awe, great stuff, not knocking it, all about it. But the skills are what get you there. Skills are in this, and the need to drive, like that just fundamental human condition to become a better version of myself. That's where the skills come in, right? Graham, you and I were talking yesterday about this, opportunity to jump on the podcast. And I'm like, I don't know, dude, there's 8-foot swell going off right now, out in Rhode Island. Hurricane Lee is doing its thing. And it's it's a hard decision to make for me.
Sure.
It really is, to say no to that and yes to this. And this is a huge opportunity for many, many reasons, right? To get to know you guys better, and you guys get to know me better, to, get to know your audience in a sense, and then get to know me and AR. But that swell is just so powerful for the opportunity it presents.
Right.
And the beauty of it is, by saying no, guess what? New tropical depression just popped up this morning. It's going to be coming right up the line, right behind Lee. And as I'm coming back from a 5-day with a client,
awesome,
from Acadia, I'm going to be literally driving to coast back, and I'm going to hit every spot on the way.
That's awesome.
So tell us a little bit about maybe what some of the actual events look like with Adventure Recovery. So I know it's very tailored to the clients, and as far as length and kind of what you're doing and their skill set and all of that, because it's I worked with a facility called Voyage Recovery, before starting New Waters, and we did a ton of experiential work there, and we got the guys out in the water 2 to 3 times a week, and free diving and spearfishing and all sorts of cool stuff. And it was always interesting when you had a kid from Manhattan, right, who had lived in a city his entire life and had never experienced anything like that, right? And we were doing some shark diving and some kind of outlandish things at that time, and I don't believe that they're doing that anymore. But obviously that's a pretty big fear factor for a lot of people. And for me, it's always been really like the experiential stuff. I think is so powerful because it creates that opportunity to like walk through that fear, right? And then coming into the clinical setting after and really processing that and seeing yourself work through that and being like, wow, that wasn't that bad. I'm faced with fear on a daily basis, but like it's a totally fictitious made up thing that we create in our mind, right? So I just feel like it's so powerful for experiential. Just creates these awesome opportunities to like work on all those skills and those tools in a beautiful setting and build confidence, right? And give them that new level of confidence that they probably haven't had ever.
Absolutely. And regain, right? Regain confidence that they've lost, right?
100%.
So we fundamentally drop 3 buckets, right? We have 3 buckets of what we offer the world, if you will. So one is the training, and we talked about that. We train people in recovery, and by the way, we tell everyone, if you're not in recovery, you're still qualified to come to an AR training. Just be warned. Our disclaimer is you'll be in recovery by the time you leave. You'll realize you have a recovery story. It's what drew you to this training in the first place, right? Yeah. So that's our training model. And what we do is we have a adventure recovery coach, we have an adventure recovery guide, and then we're about to launch an adventure recovery clinician training, which is really exciting. So that whole thing is there you go, right? So it's the whole thing is based on nature is healer, with technical skills development. And the technical skills, again, get you further. They get you deeper. They get you, they give you the passion to go into the true wild, right? Which there's arguments that doesn't exist because we've got our fingers and our footprints everywhere. But I can tell you there's some places left on this planet that are close to home that feel real wild when you get in there, right? But it takes skill to get in and get out safely. So that's our training component. And then that was the foundation of the whole model, right? I was just like, that's what I want to do, right? With my career experience and my personal and professional development, I want to do that. Mm-hmm. Then, those folks from that first cohort turned around and said, okay, coach, put us in. And I'm like, no, I'm not running a guide service, guys. I'm just training, and they're like, well, tough. We want a job. Mm-hmm. And that's when the phone started ringing, because I'd always done this individual work as a mentor, right, with people who were in recovery who wanted to become outdoor educators. So it was a natural progression of me just taking guys out and teaching them skills and helping them to bolster skills they were learning elsewhere. So I was like, the phone starts ringing, and this is again where I tell people all the time, we run our entire organization based on the principles of nature. It's a regenerative force in the universe on this planet that keeps bringing forth life and opportunity and abundance.
Right.
So that's how we do it, right? So, okay, phone's ringing. I guess I need you now, so I can't say no.
Yeah.
So we put those people to work, right? And that individual model is now like that's our core, right? That's where practitioners, institutions, schools, you name it, all these different folks out there who are working with people who are in this process of, seeking support for their mental health and substance use. We step in as a bolt-on to any other treatment modality. That's the coolest thing about it. We don't conflict, right? It's like it's a true complementary pathway, and for some, it's the only pathway. But most, they come to us from some other source. And that one-to-one model is you connect the client to a coach or guide, and the difference between coach and guide is a coach is fundamental and foundational in their skill set of navigation of the internal and external, right? So they know how to get in and out. They know the cool spots, and they know how to enter you into that natural healer self, right? The healer, by the way, nature's healer is here as well as out there, right? It's not the staff member. It's not the coach doing the healing, right? They're just getting you there, and helping you see it, right? A guide steps in when it's a technical experience. So, the client says, I want to learn to rock climb. I want to learn to whitewater kayak. I want to learn to, mountaineer. I want to learn to surf. I want to learn to snowboard. Or I want to get it back. And that's a lot of times, right? They lost it, they had it, and they lost it. Or they just I've always wanted to, but been scared to, or the social anxiety component of starting something new with a bunch of strangers, right? So that's the quote unquote core of what we're all doing in a sense. Pretty much every single guide and coach on the roster is out there with individual clients at, some level. Some that's all they're doing, and, most have at least one. And then the other bucket is institutional clients, as we call it. So it's the same model as the individual, which is choose your own, choose what you want to do. We say how hard, how far, how long, and how much, right? So how hard do you want to work at this, right? How far do you want to go with this? How long do you want to go with us, supporting you? And then how much you want to invest in the process. So with an institutional client, it's the same exact pitch, which is you want to build your own thing and you want us to consult, great. I'll give you if you're a CEO, executive director, I'll say, let's do the math first, right? Let's start there. What's the budget? And by the way, what's your long-term 5-year plan on how you're going to retain the dirtbag who you're going to wind up hiring, who I train, who's not going to want to work for you after he's, burnt out for a year, right? Because he's going to want my lifestyle, not the lifestyle of the closed-in system that is a treatment organization or a school, right? So we do that math up front just to help, decision makers understand that the long-term investment of hiring us as a guide service, as an outside contractor, pays dividends over and over and over again. And it's not just because of the insurance. It's not just because of the training. It's not just because of the supervision. It's because the people who are best at this work are transient by nature. Because like me, they got to go get their medicine. Right.
Yeah.
What do you tell the guy who's just a radical surfer when, Hurricane Lee is spinning off the coast, kicking up 8 to 12 foot swells? No, you can't go.
Right. Doesn't work.
Yeah. Right. No. In fact, yesterday I told one of that exact guy, you better go.
Right.
And he's like, no, dude, there's this other storm coming next week, and I got this individual client, and he wants to go. I was like, all right, never mind.
Nice.
Right?
Love it.
So that is, that side of that pitch. But the more important part for us with the institutional clients is they're coming to us because, we're the quote unquote experts, right? You hire a clinician who specializes in DBT. You hire a clinician who specializes in EMDR. You hire a clinician who specializes in, attachment theory, right? So we're the outdoor guys, right? Yep. And gals, and we're the folks who live this life, practice these skills. We have to maintain credentials. The requirements to maintain outdoor credentials are far more stringent than a lot of other professional requirements.
Really?
And people don't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you've got to be up to date within a year or two max where you have to recertify.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got to really be on your game. So these are the things, again, that from institutional, partnerships, we take care of all of that. And then we get to focus on the client experience.
Yep.
And there's also another part of that that's really important, which is we're an outside provider. So therefore we're a neutral party to the client. Mm-hmm. And as you guys both know, having been in this field and seen it all, there's nothing worse than a client being told that they have to do it,
right,
or else, right. And again, this model's still there for us. The band shows up and they'll pour out. I'm not doing this. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. You don't have to do anything. But the chances
you really
are,
want to sit in the van,
and I would say probably
you
95.
really want to, and no, they don't sit in the van. They don't sit in the van. All right, man. I'm not climbing. All right, cool. Don't worry. Just come to the rocks.
Yeah. And then they end up getting on the rocks. They see their buddies doing it.
Oh, dude,
they see their buddies getting the water, and they're like, that doesn't look like that bad, and those are the real breakthrough clients, right? I mean, if you can get that to engage in that, that's magic.
I had a 15-year-old girl who was, straight up tough as nails. Like, she got out of the band, came at me, I'm not doing this. And I'm like, I don't think you are. Right. But do me a favor, carry this rope, I'm not doing it. It's cool. Get to the rocks. All right, everybody put on a harness. I told you I'm not doing it. I know, but I just, I need everybody to be in a harness just because there's some points that we might have to just kind of, rope you up. All right, fine, but I'm not doing it. That's cool. All right. Mm-hmm. Now, helmets on. I'm not doing it. That's cool, but, rocks fall. Let's go. Hey, do me a favor, that rope you carried, follow me. Right. Climb up, walk around the cliffs to the top. What are we doing? I'm like, you're just going to help me set this up. Well, I told you I'm not doing it. I'm like, you're not doing it. You're helping me set it up. It's a totally different thing. You're cool? She's all right, cool. What are you doing? Like, tie this knot, check this out, check that out. It's a piece of gear. Next thing you know, I'm like, hey, do me a favor, just kind of lean back a little bit. Why? I'm like, because you're in my way. Just lean back. She sits back like no problem in her harness, right? She's hanging out in the harness. I was like, hey, you see that thing that you're holding on to? She's like, yeah. I'm like, just kind of let the rope go through it. Like, what, like this? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, cool. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing, but you're repelling right now. She's like, what? And she's literally like 6 feet below me down the cliff, looking up at me. She's like, you mother, I told you that. I was like, yeah, but you're doing it. And she gets to the bottom. She's like, can I do it again?
That's
awesome.
And that's what it's all about, so, and you're not going to get that in a clinical setting, a lot of times. And it's like, you can only do so much talk therapy, right? Like, you got to get these young guys out in the field, and anybody really.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Right. And you give them something to talk about too. That's what we'd say in the institutional settings, right? Is let us give them the experience. Mm-hmm. As an experience, not as a clinical thing. Is like, and yes, we have clinical support. We have, clinicians on our team. We have, we say we're a clinically informed outdoor education program, right? And we take it very seriously. We work with some pretty complicated clients. The client I'm going to Maine with is on the spectrum and is, has been in and out of, some significant hospitalizations.
Yeah.
And they keep coming back to me saying, I want more. All right, well, let's go. What's our safe space, right? Let's define it ahead of time, right? And that's one of the things about risk management 101 is know your outs. So with these institutional relationships, we get to set that whole thing up as like, this is a life experience. This isn't because you're in treatment, this is you get to live your life today. You get to be here. You get to be fully embodied. Your diagnoses are irrelevant right now. You're just here, and you're climbing and you're surfing and you're kayaking and you're rafting and you're watching eagles, pop up, and you're just seeing the coolest thing ever. And guess what? The whole time we've been out there, whether it's a half day, full day, multi-day, you're just getting deeper and deeper into this realization that, oh, right, I don't have to think about all that other stuff while I'm out here.
Yep.
right? And it's not an avoidance therapy, right? It's actually an immersive therapy. It's like, I get to be okay. I get to be safe in my own skin, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we work.
Yeah, it's
That's cool.
amazing.
So if let's say a family member or a client wanted to reach out to you, so what does that process look like? Do they just kind of call you guys directly, or like what do those conversations look like?
So for most of our individual clients, come straight through a practitioner of some kind.
Okay.
Right. So it's a direct link because we have these great working relationships. So that's not the only way, but that's the vast majority of folks, because we don't do any kind of like big advertising or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to us too, because we want the individual client to be able to tell their own story to their guide, right, as they see fit.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's important to have some of the background information, right, to make a good assessment of what is the best first step.
Mm-hmm.
So most people will speak to Josh Flaherty, our executive director, and he's also a partner in AR and also a former client of AR. Nice. And he's an LMSW, and he typically does, for most East Coast clients, he does the initial assessment, which is a walk in the woods.
Okay.
And it's designed that way so that the client understands from very first interaction that they get to choose where they go and how they're going to get there. Mm-hmm. So here's the map. Where do you want to go on the map? Which trail do you want to take? And at every intersection, they look at us and go, which way? And I don't know. You got the map, man. This is your journey. Right. I'm just along for the walk, right? So that's that experience. And then out west, it's either Seth or Nate, who are two kind of lead guys out there. In Colorado, they do that same initial assessment. And we're actually in the process of training up some folks to start doing more of them in New England, because we're just expanding this concentric circle out of where we are here. Yep. And then from that, the client has to answer those questions: how hard, how far, how long. Mm-hmm. And what we say to them is what skill, right? So what's the focus, the skill they get into. Some clients opt for just individual therapy with Josh. And that's why we started this, clinical pathway that we're working on. Is we see the great need where clients don't want to go sit in an office to do therapy, and they don't necessarily want to start climbing either, because they're still a little bit like wary that the technical skill's too big a leap.
Okay.
So they start doing one-on-one walk and talk, right? Same idea as that assessment, but now it's a conversation, shoulder to shoulder, walking through the woods, that sort of thing. And sometimes paddle boarding, because that's a very low barrier of entry experience, and not that it's a low skill set for the guides, and Josh and the other clinicians that we're bringing on board. But it's an easy one to train, and give people, and you can control the environment a little bit easier. So, but the idea is, as you guys know, right, the bilateral movement of walking. Yep. The bilateral movement of paddling, the bilateral experience of the brain just having to be occupied a little bit, just that tiny bit, right? Helps people just kind of realize and the path, by the way, is another piece that science is figuring out, like the need to not have to be overwhelmed with all the extra stimulus, right? And that's the idea behind a clinical office, by the way, right? Yeah. Like a clinician's office should be uncluttered, it should be clean, it should be right. So, but a lot of people would rather move and talk than sit and talk. And then there's also that power struggle, a hierarchy thing of like, I'm the therapist, you're the client. But when you're shoulder to shoulder walking through the woods and you're like, oh, damn, I just got bit by a mosquito. Right. You're experiencing the same experience while having this deeper conversation. Yeah. So that's how we engage. And then the cool part is the how far and how long is all determined by the client. We want you to move beyond our services. We want you to go to the next level. And I tell people the best phone call I get is 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line when they say, hey, Tim, guess what? I'm going to run the Grand Canyon. No way. You want to come? Cool. Yeah. Hell yeah. Are you kidding me? When are you going? I'm leaving tomorrow. Dude, come on. Bro, really? Tomorrow? You did this on purpose, right? Of course I am. So
awesome.
that's and then there's the flip side of that, right? Same time, right? Like 5 years, 10, whatever. Dude, I'm struggling. I'm Tim. It's been a while. I haven't talked to you. I'm having a hard time right now. I'm a dad. I got kids. I got a job. I got life stuff. Right? Life is getting lifey. I'm like, all right, cool. When's the last time you went climbing? Because that's the thing we did together, right? Yeah. Well, I haven't had the chance. It's been. I've been so. I just told you, like, these things. Okay, hold on. Click. I hang up on them. Literally, I hang right up on them, and they go, like, what? I can't believe you just hung up on me. Right. So of course they call back. Right. And if they don't, of course I call them back. And by the way, this is an old AA sponsor trick, right? Hey, hey, sponsor. Hey, Tim, how's it going? Good, man. Hey, Tim, did you read your step? You want to talk about step 1? Well, actually, I forgot and I didn't click.
Right. All right.
Don't.
If you're not putting the time in, I'm not putting the time in.
The message was it's not don't waste my time, right? And then it's not even like don't waste your time. It's don't waste the other guy's time.
Mm.
Yep.
Don't waste the next guy's time, right? Who really, really wants to, needs to, and is gonna do it.
Yeah.
So I get those calls, the click, and then they call back like, oh man. I'm like, you know what I'm gonna say next, right? And they're like, what? Go climbing.
Yeah.
Go kayaking, go paddle, go do the thing that we did, and then call me back. Yeah. Right? Participate in your own rescue, dude. Go and call me back. And of course they call back every time, like, dude, how? Like I'm like, what? You feel better, don't you? But it can't be that simple. Yeah, it is, man. It really is. You forgot your medicine. Yep. You stopped taking your medicine. So get back to it. And then we have something to talk about, right? Now we can actually talk about why this is so hard, whatever this is, right? Yeah. And oh, by the way, if we can make it work, depending on where we are in the world, let's get out together as soon as possible. Yeah. Let's get back to it. And at that stage, that's just a climbing buddy, that's just a kayaking buddy, right? That's like for fun and for free, as we say.
That's cool.
Unless it's an immersive experience, right, where it's going to require our time to be really committed, right, outside of that, our own medicine component, but it's all very upfront. How do you want to do it? How much do you want this medicine, and how much do you want our support in getting it?
Yeah. That's cool. It's interesting because when you were talking about that, I was just thinking about how we are just like woefully unprepared for life, with society the way that it is, right? And like what an amazing skill set or thing to teach our children at a very young age, like all of these principles, right? And it is that simple. Get out there, get outside on a daily basis, get in the sun, get some vitamin D, all these things that we now we're kind of becoming aware to a lot more. I feel like there's a lot more conversation about these things, certainly. But it's amazing to me that, it takes what it takes to have that awareness, to go to these deep, dark places to wake up to that is really unfortunate, and it's just like we need to be doing a better job with our kids, it really.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it's true. I mean, you mentioned, I think our society now, I mean, it's like, especially with the kids, I have young kids, 2 young boys, and like, thank goodness I'm a little blessed. They do like being outside. They like camping. They like that kind of stuff. But, them sometimes, and also like looking at their friends. I mean, it's like, it's video games. It's, you're on the computer, you're watching YouTube, like all this kind of stuff. And like, it's tough, man.
Isolation, right?
Isolation.
And it's just like, it's
an
ruining
addiction.
An addiction, 100%. And it's, firing their brain off and just dopamine surges all day long. And,
dopamine.
Yeah. And, and it's like, and it's the opposite, when you were first talking about, the first thing that came up to me was like connection, right? It's all about, recovery is connection, in my opinion. And, getting out there, connecting with another human, getting out in the woods, doing that. And the kids these days are just not doing that. We're going to be obviously dealing with, I think, a lot of issues moving forward with this generation coming up. So, having guys like you that can step in and really get them out of that void,
Yeah. Even, I mean,
we actually had a conversation yesterday with a outdoor leadership program leader for a boarding school. So that's his job, right? He's there to run outdoor leadership programming for this, boarding school. We're going to take his prefects, because he's also in charge of the prefects this year, on a retreat where he's not even, facilitating. He's just coming with, so that they can get off campus, out of the chaos that's already week 3 that they're dealing with. They're underprepared for just how much stress these kids are under. Yeah. And this isn't a therapeutic boarding environment. This is a very high tier, very, very high tier program.
Yeah.
And we have this relationship where we do these different skills-based experiences for them. But this was a really specific conversation, right? He said, you guys know this stuff. I don't know this stuff. You guys know this stuff. So we're coming to base camp, and we're gonna, you guys take, you take care of them, kind of like take care of us.
Yep.
And I said, well, then you understand that what that's going to be is a lot less, and a lot less is more. So we're going to just kind of do camp. We're just going to chill. We're going to be, making fire, cooking food,
connecting,
looking at stars, this isn't going to be a high, energy experience. It's going to be a real, slow and low, like a barbecue, right? We were going to go real easy. And but this is what we're seeing, right? Is now we have the opportunity to infiltrate the systems that have created the problem, right? So I tell people all the time, my kids aren't, well, that's not true. My daughter is very much into team sports. My son, not so much. My son's actually a junior guide at AR. He cool. Actually he's helping co-facilitate at his school.
Very cool.
And it's beyond my wildest dreams. And I didn't set it up. He did. He made it happen. So so the idea is kids. This is my new thing. Kids don't want to use drugs. They're smarter than they've ever been. They actually have more. They have literally the keys to the universe in their pocket, and they know it.
Yeah.
Right. They know it. They're trapped in it because of all the bastards who are making the algorithms, right, and making the money. Right. We know that for a fact. Right. But they know how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
They've never been more exposed to the true danger of substance use. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They don't want to use drugs, but guess what? They still want to get high.
Yep. You know it.
Right. Sure. They really want to get high. And then our systems that we give them as alternatives, let's face it, guys, they suck. Because if they were good, right?
Yeah.
The kids wouldn't be using drugs. They'd be doing those things, right?
Yep.
Right. So we contrive all this crap around their lives, and we build their lives around all this contrived, one-upsmanship. And it's my thing against team sports. Like me, you put me in a team, I'm going to play my heart out, and we're going to win. And if we don't win, I'm going to just go off the freaking deep end, because that's what I was trained. Right. That's the point, right? Sure. We're here to win. You ever go surfing, you ever go skateboarding, you ever go snowboarding, you ever do any of these things with a bunch of dudes or a bunch of gals or a bunch of dudes and gals, and everybody's just doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And the person who is just doing it the hardest, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's going, woo.
Right. Yep. Sharing the stoke.
And the dude who's on the struggle bus, who's just doing it the hard, like really just struggling, everybody's like, go, you got this. Right.
Yeah.
And everything in between. So my like real true life mission here is, we are in the state we're in, causation, correlation, all that crap. No, we are with youth mental health. Forget just the kids, man. We're all screwed, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody is struggling because we have moved out of nature.
Yep.
Period. Full stop. We've moved inside, square walls, square boxes. We're in a controlled environment. And believe me, people are controlling this environment. We're making a lot of money, right? What was it, like Amazon doubled, right? During COVID.
During the pandemic,
everybody went inside and went shopping on Amazon.
Yep.
100%.
It's not an accident,
Nope.
right? It's not an accident. This is an engineer. I'm not saying it's the virus and all that shit's engineered, but I'm saying this is an engineered system that we have of creating people who are trapped in their dis-ease.
Yep.
and they're trapped within four walls and in screens. We have their attention. So let's maximize the value of that. So my true mission is screw it all, let's get outside. And let's use these tools. Let's use these tools, by the way, out there.
Yeah.
You know, we show, like, we all have dedicated pages on our phones with outdoor apps, and we use it in training. We show people in training, like, use this app for this, use this app for this, use this app for this. And just remember, it's going to break down, right? Technology breaks down.
Right. So
be prepared to, put it away.
So good.
Because it's going to break down anyway. Yeah. And so for me, and then the last thing I'll say is, who better in the world right now to train the rest of the planet around healthy ecology, right? Who better in this world right now to train other human beings, to teach, to model what it means to live a sustainable, regenerative lifestyle,
right,
than a person in recovery?
Yeah.
A person who's already blown it up, man, right? A person who's already come so close to death by overconsumption, right?
Yeah.
Who better than that community to step up and say, "Now, man, we don't have to live this way. We can take less and do more." Okay. So I can't thank you guys enough for, like, giving me the chance to just, spread that message, if you will, and what we're doing. The fact, and I can't emphasize enough how impressed I am with what you guys are doing, and the need for really, well thought out, really thoughtful, really kind, really generous time and effort towards a person's earliest stage of their recovery is so vital, right?
Really is.
Right. We all, everybody deserves what you guys are offering, and I know Graham enough, and I'm getting to know you, Justin, that you guys are just getting started here. So I look forward to how much you guys are going to continue to impact lives, and thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
We appreciate it. Tim, I feel like we should get together and go camping or something.
Let's go.
100%.
Let's go, man.
We're down.
Let's do it.
Asheville.
Let's do it.
So is there anything?
How hard, how far, how long, and how much? Answer those questions, and let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
So now, is there anything that you want to plug? Maybe your website at the least? Let everybody know where to find you.
Absolutely, yeah. AdventureRecovery.com.
Perfect.
A lot of people love our Instagram and all that stuff. So at Adventure Recovery, I guess, is how you get to all those things.
Okay. Perfect.
People often ask, and I have, like, my own professional pages, like Tim Walsh. None of it's me, by the way. It's all my stuff, in the sense, like, we're doing it. This isn't stock stuff. Like, this is all of our content is us.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's this is the life we're living. But it's not, I'm not the one posted. So people always reach out directly, and I'm like, no, it's not me. Someone else is,
You're out surfing.
Bus.
So you're not checking in.
In fact, this morning, the ticks all went out from this thing we did yesterday, and my phone was on the table, and the person who does this picks up the phone and goes, "This is the shot. This is the shot.
I love it.
Why wasn't this?" I was like, I'm not doing it, man. I take the pictures. I don't know what happens for bear. They're in the cloud.
I love it. Yeah, they're in the cloud. Well, thanks so much for being with us today, man. This has been fun to catch up with you, and we're talking about doing a lot of work together moving forward. So I'm just excited for that. So looking forward to getting our clients engaged with Adventure Recovery and really taking it to the next level.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys both. Keep doing the great work you're doing.